My walk started out with a sighting of a snowshoe hare among the branches. Don't see him? There's a tiny black dot of an eye and two shadows for the ears. Still don't see him? Here, let me put an arrow in. He seemed to react when I moved, but instead of running away, he chose to stand on his hind legs and pluck a branch and then nibble on it.
Just clipped off a branch there. Settle down and nibble.
I left him to enjoy his breakfast. The days are steadily getting longer, and although the sun was hidden by a thin layer of cloud, it was nice to be outside. I headed to my favorite viewpoint and was delighted to see some diamond dust snow. Tiny ice crystals freeze and then tumble through the air, reflecting sunlight and sparkling like diamonds. My admiration of the flickering light was interrupted by a whirring sound. It grew steadily louder and seemed to be coming from the creek itself.
Oh my goodness. I think I've seen this guy before. I've never seen him on the creek though, but hey, it works. I thought somebody was coming up with a motorized vehicle.
I watched the winter cyclist on his fat bike round the bend, and then returned to admiring the quiet winter landscape. As I headed deeper into the valley, I realized I was surrounded by woodpeckers drumming. I paused for a few minutes to listen to the different pitches of sound that they created. Unfortunately, my little camera's microphone doesn't pick up the sound very well, but if you listen carefully, you might be able to hear it.
Just for a frame of reference, but up there somewhere is where I stood and watched the birds sing when the sun came out. And over there somewhere is where the coyote was howling at me that one time. And I've also been along a little closer on the edge of the ridge and watched some deer on the other side of this peninsula here. And then over here is where the sleeping family of geese was. Yeah, lots of memories actually with this place.
I spotted some coyote tracks heading across the creek. The ice opens up new paths and makes it easier to get around. The path I was following headed up a hill. I stood there, admiring the landscape, and also saw a raven flying by. As I stood there, I heard 2 distinct footsteps behind me, like fresh snow crunching. I turned to look, but saw nothing. I figured it must have been somebody walking up on the sidewalk. I turned back, but I still had the distinct feeling that someone was there. And I even had a feeling like that someone wished to push me off the hill. I heard 2 more footsteps, and this time, when I turned around, I saw a flash of a long white tail, the backside of a deer trotting through the brush. I tried to follow them, but they quickly disappeared. I even walked up the trail, and then back, thinking that they might have doubled back to try and sneak by. I eventually gave up on trying to see the deer again, but I kept pausing to look at the diamond dust, and I kept a hopeful eye on the creek.
Back on the other side of the creek, I was looking at the slope and I was like, it looks a little bluish to me. And yeah, now that I'm here, I can see that there's a huge puddle of meltwater down there, and then probably some other bits just right there, maybe in there too. Yeah, spring is trying.
The tiny particles continued to glitter in the air as I rounded the curve. In the area below, I sometimes see deer grazing along the bank, but not today. My fingers were starting to get a little chilled in the cold air and slight wind. The tall pines provided some relief from the wind, and I enjoyed a last look at the diamond snow. Of course, I stopped to feed the chickadees. And while heading to another lookout point, I saw a hairy woodpecker. The frost hadn't melted yet in the weak sunlight, and I enjoyed seeing some more chickadees. There was one more place that I wanted to see. Along the way, I spotted this old trunk, with its bark flecked off by hungry woodpeckers, creating a medley of grays and browns. I trudged through some dense trees to the place that I wanted to see. These cliffs fascinate me, towering high above and showcasing some of the white mud that the creek is named after. Like many landscapes, it is constantly changing. At the top, you can see an area that is starting to slump downwards. I could see some areas where melted snow had started to trickle down the slope, contributing to the change. In the distance, I could see even some fresh soil that had been dislodged and rolled onto the ice. I returned back and found the same stump, but it looked quite different from the other side. Taking 20 steps and looking from a different perspective made me feel a little philosophical. The valley had one more thing in store for me. As I headed home, I spotted a deer in a section of the valley with some dense brush. After a long look, she picked her way through the deep snow. She's hard to see, but she's there in the middle. As I took a last look, a second deer hopped out from somewhere out of view. They headed deeper into the forest, and I felt blessed. As always, thanks for watching.